Pure panic. What else can I say? It was midnight and our 7-week-old can't breathe. We place our hands upon his chest. 5 seconds go by with no movement. Another 5 seconds go by that feel like a full minute. He breathes, we breathe. Oh no, it stopped again. We look at each other with panic. We get him out of bed and we make our first trip to the ER. You know, this all could have been avoided if the doctors would have listened to us. We first noticed our son had issue breathing right away. When we took him to the pediatrician, they told us a phrase we would hear way too often in this process. Every baby breathes like this. Every baby breathes like this? Really? Weeks pass while our son struggles to catch a single breath. Every squeak that comes from his mouth louder than the last. This is normal, I would tell myself, while my wife tells me no, this isn't. Back to that lonely night in the ER, the doctor comes in and tells us the same thing. He must have a cold. All babies breathe like this. And then they send us home. The next day, my wife and him are in the ambulance going back to the same hospital. As I rush home from work, the tears flying down my face and my hands are just shaking at the wheel. They're starting to take us seriously, that this thing that they call normal breathing isn't normal. As we stayed in the hospital that night, they told us the same thing though. This is a normal baby with a cold. I promise, we weren't just first-time paranoid parents who worried about everything. This just wasn't normal. Fast forward 2 days later, guess where we end up? The same ER. It took over 10 doctors to finally tell us that our son had an airway defect called Laryngomalacia. But what? What is Laryngomalacia? I could barely say it, let alone spell it. Essentially, it's the muscles around their larynx aren't strong enough to stay open while they breathe. And this defect got worse with a cold or, in our case, when our son's reflux kicked in. This little airway defect would change and shape our future for the next year. Doctors and therapist appointments filled up our calendar. Sleepless nights all focused around this little baby boy. He grew though. He grew, and things began to finally work itself out. His therapist began working things out. His medication for his reflux and GERD was finally helping out his quote-unquote junky breathing, until finally, he won. Our little superhero prevailed. This defect made him a champion.